The topic reminds me of an Indian traveler who would go to Africa every 2 years. And in Africa, you would see all these exotic poets talking parrots, parrots singing, talking, and he was very enchanted. And he said in one of his travels, I'll take a parrot back as a pet. And he was allowed to do that. And he brought the parrot back to his country, took great care of him, put the music on every day, would feed him nuts, and really take good care of him. Then after 2 years, it was another time to go back to Africa. And when he asked his pet, any message you want me to take for your friends? And the parrot said, yes, please tell them I'm very well, I'm enjoying it here, and please give them all of them my love. So the traveler went to Africa, he did that, and he told the group of parrots over there that, your friend is happy, he's sending hello and love to you. And suddenly one parrot started crying, and he cried so hard that he fell down and died. The traveler was shocked, and he thought maybe he was the best friend of his pet, and that's why he died. And he came back to India, and he told the story to his pet, this is what happened. And to his surprise, the pet also started crying, and he died. And the traveler was like, ye kya ho gaya? His friend died, so maybe the shock was too much, he has died. We opened the cage and put the parrot out in the dustbin. And suddenly the parrot got up and flew and sat on a tree. And the traveler said, why did you pretend to be dead? He said, my friend from Africa sent me a very important message when you conveyed it to me. What message he sent you? He said that if you're in a cage and you want to escape the cage, you have to be dead when you're alive. And that is what is the situation with skilling today. Through this session, I want to provoke all of you, if you are working in the skilling sector, to really have a relook at skilling. And is it a cage that you are sitting in doing traditional skills, or looking at it from the same window and seeing the same thing? And I'm very delighted to have a panel that supports me in this approach that we want to share with the audience. And I would like to open up with Dr. Goyal, who will shock you further with the kind of statistics that we are seeing on how many people are skilled, undergoing skilling, and still remain unemployable. Dr. Goyal, over to you.
Thank you, Sarita ji. Good afternoon to all of you. Before I come to the topic of skilling, let me very briefly talk about the organization for which I worked for last about 25 years until April this year. Company is called as Bosch. It was started by one young boy of 25 years in 1886 in a small place, that time small place called Stuttgart in Germany. It was a very small workshop which he started, which became the world's biggest auto component manufacturing and innovating company, now having about 440 companies across the globe. So if one person can achieve so much in his or her life, I think all of us have a chance. The company is now doing a business of about 78 billion euros, which is about 7 lakh crore rupees as per the current conversion rate. Employs about 4 lakh people. But more important than anything else is the company applies for 13 patents every day. So it's not every week or every month, 13 patents every day, so 1.5 patent every waking hour. But there was something more interesting about this company. The founder said, and very strongly believed, that the money which comes as a profit out of business should not only remain with the shareholders. The society is the biggest stakeholder, and the money should go back to the society. And to ensure that the company is now the global company of 7 lakh crore rupees business every year, is now owned by a charitable trust called Robert Bosch Foundation, headquartered in Germany, which gets 92% of the profit from all the businesses of Bosch world over. Mr. Robert, thank you. Mr. Robert's Posh family gets only 7% and 1% of the profit is used to meet the administrative expenses. I was very, very fortunate until April this year to be heading the India operations of the foundation, the Bosch India Foundation, also the group CSR and the skill development. Let me now come to the topic of skill development. I will start with India instead of going to Germany. Bosch started a vocational training center in 1960 in Bangalore. The intent was to bring the world famous German apprenticeship system to India. And Germans like 3-year training. They don't like the short trainings of 3 months or 1 year, etc. For them, apprenticeship should be 3 years. So this training center is running that German apprenticeship model now for last 61 years very successfully. About 25% of the students who have completed the course from this center work abroad. In fact, the biggest alumni association of this center, which is in Bangalore, is in Sydney. Second biggest alumni association is in Melbourne. So there was a time when the Australian government wrote to the Bangalore office of theirs that whoever comes from a Myco Bosch vocational center, don't ask them any question and give them work permit. The center now, of late, while it started as a business requirement, is more focusing on CSR vocational training. And we have also introduced another model of training which is short-term training of 3 months. When the CSR Act came in 2014 April, before that there was a draft. So we discussed in Bosch as to what we should be doing with that money which we have to separately earmark for CSR. The answer was simple. We know how to skill people, so we will do skilling. But what kind of skilling? He said this model of 3 years is very long and very expensive. We should have another model which is short and not very expensive. So we developed a 3 months training course called Bridge, mainly around the soft skills which are necessary for any kind of a job in the service sector, particularly the entry-level jobs. So this model is 2 months training in the classroom, 1 month on the job. We started with one center in 2013-27 January. Today we have one center, almost one center in every district of the country. We have 725 centers, 50,000 youth who failed in class 12th, 11th or 10th have been trained on these 3 months course and have been employed. We are able to ensure that 100% of the youth who come to the Bridge Center gets the job. Now coming further, I don't know how much time I have. 2 more minutes or? 2 minutes if you give, then I can come
touch upon the statistics that we have in the country.
I will do that. If you give me 2 minutes, well, now coming to the demographic dividend, I think all of us know the numbers. India needs 1 million jobs every month because there are 1 million youth in the country who complete the age of 18 every month. So either they should go for higher education or they should go for a skilling course and then get employed. We know that the higher education only is for about 8-9% or maybe 10% of the youth in the country. 90% of them ideally should be going for a vocational training, which is not happening. They are only 6 or 7% who go for vocational training. Rest of the people get into the labor market without earning or learning any kind of a skill. So that is the scenario we are in. But whatever is the scenario, as a country, we have to provide jobs, whether self-employment or wage employment, to 10 lakh youth every month. So I will touch upon that another program which we have recently developed and now working with Government of India, NSDC. This we have named as PRIDE. PRIDE is a program wherein we train the trainers or teachers, mainly the freelance trainers, to start their own skilling centers. So we started with 100 such youth in the country who were trained on a module specially designed by us. It is a 4-module course, M1, M2, M3, M4. And after that, we ensure that all these 100 youth start their own skilling center and start training and employing the unemployed youth. After 100 youth were able to start their successful skilling centers with the help of the Bosch, Government of India draw attention to it, and NSDC now has become the partner of Bosch to expand this further. Day before, we have inaugurated another 100 skill centers as a part of Bosch NSDC Pride program, and now we are in fact looking to scale it up further. Very simple model, very economic model, but 100 skill centers will be able to train and employ 100 youth every year each center. That means 10,000. So that's the Pride model, which is now becoming quite popular, wherein the topic of today is the micro enterprises. So in fact, what we are doing is we are creating these micro entrepreneurs in the skilling industry itself, where the country needs a lot. So instead of looking for a wage employment, or instead of looking for even a micro-rural employment, which we have a different course, we are saying that you become a skill entrepreneur. Perhaps the term doesn't exist in Google. They talk about entrepreneurial skills, but we have put it ulta. Skill entrepreneur means you are going to start your own skilling center without investment, very easy, just with this training. Because we have linked this up to the education policy of Government of India, NEP 2020, wherein there is a focus on introducing the vocational skills in the higher education. So all these skill entrepreneurs are starting their colleges, so their skilling centers in the degree colleges or PU colleges. Through that, we are able to introduce the vocational training in the higher education also. As we know, government had, I think I've spoken too much, so maybe I will stop here and then come again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You spoke about two different models which are different and new in their approaches. How many of you here have been working since 2015? All right, 30% of your skills are already redundant. How many before that? Before 2015? 60% of your skills are redundant. And that is the real truth out there. And if that's the situation with us who are educated and are finding our skills redundant, can you just imagine what's happening in the rural areas where people are not even having the basic skills? I turn to Rupa to understand, and Rupa, I want you to touch upon this scenario, not just what TNS Foundation does, because I'm sure a lot of them can go to the website and figure that out. But the challenges of working with rural on skill development, especially women. We live in such a patriarchal society. How do you really navigate and make them look away from the earlier session? Somebody spoke about achar, sewing machine, papad making, but really look at something different. Over to you.
Thanks, Sarata. I think it's a very important question when you talk about skilling. Where is the place for women, right? Just visualize of a woman in rural area. What do you think? She's working at home, taking care of children, maybe doing work in the farm, or could do sewing, could do papad making, pickle making, whatever you mention. Do you even think that, or even visualize the fact you can think of a woman flying a drone in rural India? Right? No. And that's our biggest concern. The bias, the structural bias that exists in the society to say women can do A but not B, or cannot do anything technical. For that matter, a lot of women who might be sitting here would say, oh, my husband can fix my computer. I don't know how to work or do something on my laptop properly, right? Which is just the mindset we've created for women, that they cannot pick up roles which are technically oriented. So that's, I feel, is one of the key reasons where we see lesser participation. If you all know, there's just 38.8% participation of women in the workforce in India today, right? The second biggest thing, and I'm not sure if some of you have experienced it, access to finance. When you go to a bank and say, ask for a home loan, they say, do you have a male co-applicant? That's a common thing most women face urban. And rural, it gets worse because A, education is very limited. B, your understanding of how or what loan you should apply is very limited. And the third and the most interesting piece is, why do I take a loan? My husband is there to take a loan, right? So those are few elements where, because of which you see lesser participation of women in rural India. Now just coming to a thought of how do we make this change, and we always say we should have role models, right? And I'm sure some of you would have, or probably most of you must have seen Shark Tank, right? You've heard of Vinita Singh, Sugar Cosmetics, Ghazal Alag. How many of us even knew that women role model exist, whether it's micro-entrepreneurship space, entrepreneurship space, or even in skilling, right? There's very, very limited number of women which we see who can be role models to both rural and urban women. So those are, I think, the key aspects or key reasons where we see lesser participation and difficulty for women to come in. And I think one of the things to fix is sharing equal responsibility. That's males and females, whether you talk about working at home or working outside, should share equal responsibility. When that behavior change will start setting in, I think that's where you see more participation of women, whether it's rural or it's urban workforce.
Thank you. There's so much more to be done, right? Then I think, but you're making a beginning. It's a long road, and we can't do that all by ourselves. We need, of course, many people to collaborate and partner. But let me come to Yogesh. Yogesh, if there's one buzzword I've heard, and when I saw the agenda here, in green, masterclass on ESG, it stood out. Right? Not 1, 2, and climate change and all of that talk. It's for me, it's the golden goose today. It's a hen laying the golden egg. You want to really get funds, donation, get into ESG, get into sustainability. Is that something that is touching, say, skilling also? Is the skilling paradigm changing because of climate change and what we are seeing?
Yeah, good afternoon all. Thank you, Sarita, for a beautiful question and very relevant in the present context. So I'll just take a minute to step back, and I would like to reflect upon. So it's been around more than 18, 19 years of experience in the social development sector, and I have seen both the end, from the implementing part, from the NGO and from the corporate side. So I still remember the SHG movement when it started in 1997, and it has taken a brief movement in 2011. So those were the time when people were promoting SHGs and for definitely for developing a micro enterprises in the villages across the country. And then we have seen, we were facilitating federation of SHGs. Then nowadays we are talking about the FPOs, and a lot of changes has been, and we have seen this transition. So from, the scheme like SGSY in 1999, promoting SHG. Now NRLM, National Rural Livelihood Mission. Nowadays we are hearing the word like social entrepreneurship. And such, a lot of transition we have seen. So when I was hearing you and Rupa as well, like for the traditional skilling, for whatever the ladies were doing in the rural area. But I feel that was the investment made since 97, and now we feel that we should look up to the drone and all, and definitely because of the relevant investment made that time and the kind of effort taken, and now we are talking about the future skilling. Similarly, on the, I'm coming to the same, question. From the CSR front, we have seen, a lot of people engaged in the social development sector even before that. So in 2014, the CSR law came, and it's been more structured now, and more structured reporting, more disclosures are there, it's streamlining. But throughout this journey, nowadays we are also talking about the BSR report as well. And so what my understanding and experience, what I can figure it out, one important thing that you have to gauge the investment climate. You need to understand the priority of the government, investors, and that's really make a lot of difference. So in light of that, around the globe, the government and the investors are taking a stepping stone, taking a very bold move for addressing a climate change issue. And now the climate change is not just the matrix or a reporting framework like ESG, but actually it's at the doorstep, and it's actually impacting us every day. Whether it's a flood, flash floods, or it's a long dry spell, it directly impact the farming community. And so there are few facts I would like to say, like the Food and Agriculture Organization, they said that in the last 30 years, the climate-related disaster increased threefold. And additionally, 100 million people will be again go back to the poverty if we don't address the climate change issue. So in light of that, I think, and in response to the global, response, Government of India and India has also set a relevant target to be like a net zero by 2070. And by 2030, we are expecting 50% of renewable energy. Our energy requirement will be replaced by renewable energy. So those are the very bold kind of a commitment at the global platform the stakeholder has given. And the same is now reflecting in across the industry. So here I would like to tell one important thing, that this transition to green economy is going to create a lot of jobs and employability opportunity. And definitely, along with the traditional skill, we should see this skill which is coming up and going to be there for a longer run. So just would like to reflect that as per the skill study globally, they are expecting 24 million jobs to be created by 2030. So 24 million, majority of the job would be from country like India. So if you see the CAGR, the compounded annual growth rate of the industry, if you just take a data of this renewable energy, the 8% would be between 22 to 27. It means around 9 lakh job would be there by 2030, in next 6 years.
Are there jobs for the communities in ESG or sustainability? That's what I'm
So
asking
I just would like to...
Because I'm looking at the timer, my clock is ticking, and I don't want to disappoint the audience by not asking them questions.
So
Please,
so let me come back to, I would just like to share one example, just to, we in Schaeffler run a program called Social Innovation Fellowship. And like this year, we invited application for social innovation across the thematic area like waste management, energy, environment, education, and community health. And across the India, we received around 500 applications. We shortlisted 167. We identified 11 innovative ideas under CSR. And what we have supported in fellowship, we have given them a mentorship program at Center for Innovation and Incubation Entrepreneurship at IIM Ahmedabad. And I would like to cite one example. One of the startup or this group of individual, they identified, this thermocol as an issue. And it goes to the landfill after single use, and it occupies 70% of the area of the landfill, right? If you see in the packaging industry. So they have the innovative product called Mycelium, where they are producing the alternative packaging material where they are having the agri-waste and mixing it with the particular type of mushroom. So now, when they went to the industry with the product, they are into kind of a patent. Industry liked it, and the electronic and white consumer good company, they really liked their product to collaborate with them. So this kind of innovation or social entrepreneur, they are seeking a good amount of funding because one of the electronic consumer company asked them to supply that material. But for that, they need to have an investment and need to wait for 3 years because they are developing the entire value chain.
I'll come back to this more in detail, but I do want to hear from Ketan, because what I'm hearing now is what the scene is like, the new models that are coming up, the challenges with women. And I just want to understand from Ketan, is there a way academia, industry can come together to sort of set up something to address all this? Because, I'm looking at down the line, hiring is going to be more skill-based rather than degree-based. You go to LinkedIn, 38,000 skilling courses are running on LinkedIn, and people are taking them. Why? because they realize that's the future. So Ketan, I know you have some very innovative model coming up, something called Fuel, or just throw some light and be very, very precise as to what it is about.
Sure. I think when the batsman comes with the last overs, you have to observe the run rate. So I'll be very specific and precise. And I know you all attend the forums. I've been also at those sites. So what exactly you look for speakers when they speak on skilling and ecosystem? I was at the roundtable with the LinkedIn CEO yesterday, and he gave a press statement that India will have skills hiring versus degree. And so we will be having the days when which college the person is coming from, which company he belongs to, previously, more than that, what skill certification he or she will have, and that student will be hired. And those days are coming very quickly to us. I'm building a model where we establish skilling universities with industries, with academia, and exactly map what the L&D wants and give them the skilling which at grassroots is needed. But, you know, all of us, including the social sector, we are trying to solve the most complex social problem which the government is not able to solve, which the ecosystem of industry is not able to solve, but the responsibility is given to social entrepreneurs, organizations who are sitting in this room. How do we make it happen for them? Because they are with less of talent and resources. They are with the less admin cost which is prescribed to them with the CSR challenges. They are an organization who themselves have innovated daily and came up with the model. And policy demands them to be supermen. State governments can't spend the budgets, but NGOs need to spend it before 31st March, need to work with the donors as early as possible and make it happen. And I can look at the smiles of my friends and colleagues there, which really resonates with what they are. But are we trying to solve the skilling problem, which is a tangential problem? 16 years of education in engineering and 10 school education has not been able to solve that problem. And you want that 45 to 60 to 90 days to solve that problem. Is that possible? Number one. Second, short-term courses will lead to employability, which leads to attrition. You train him in some skills which are no longer redundant, then how do you do it? So looking at what India has is service sector jobs. They are not specific domain skills. They are skills like life skills, they are skills like personality development, communication skills. Those are the skills which we can train, and then the transferable skills into different domains could take the judgment. And we all belong to that 9% of the people who are actually making the economy, and we are in those jobs which are talking about all the skills. But the other 91% is into agriculture, is into the skills which are not known, is into service sector, completely unknown terrain. So whatever we are talking about is the youth participation, the demographic dividend, everything will only come into play when we know the service sector jobs are going to cater our economy. And that's what I want to throw light and say this as a last pointer. Celebrate social entrepreneurs like this who are in this room, because they are the new change makers for the story, and we need policies which are favorable to make skilling happen in the country in a way that all the service sectors absorb them and validate that certification which we are giving. Who is asking the certificate given by the government in the hiring process? And I ask this question to the industry, that when you yourself don't hire a people who is certified from a specific course, how do social entrepreneurs or NGOs are expected to do that training with that certification? So please, if everyone wants an NSDC certificate to happen, please also declare in your job resumes that we want people with NSDC certification. And that's where the aspirational value will come into it. I now speak because my 60% of revenue doesn't come from CSR. Comes from HNIs, comes from people whom I had the courage to speak to. So I request, my humble request is that if we could bring this aspirational value high, ask the recruiters to validate the certification, the entire skilling ecosystem game will change. Thank you.